It's been 4 months since Republicans took control of the House with barely a majority. And so far, their focus has not been on anything benefiting the American people or even their own base. Instead, their focus has almost exclusively been on the twice impeached first former president to be indicted and the first to be found liable for sexual misconduct, Donald Trump. The latest example, Trump's congressional lackey, Jim Jordan, today using the House Judiciary Committee to hold a theatrical deposition with Mark Pomerantz, a former prosecutor who once oversaw Manhattan's years-long investigation of Trump. As part of Jordan's ongoing attack on Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, who brought the case over Trump's role in the Stormy Daniels hush money payment that resulted in 34 criminal charges against the reality show star turned politician. Remember last month, Jordan held a committee hearing in Bragg's backyard, attacking Bragg's record on crime in New York City, even though the homicide rate was substantially higher in Jordan's backyard of Cleveland, Ohio. All of that comes as Republicans on the House Oversight Committee, led by James Comer, have worked tirelessly to push the false assertion that the true crime family syndicate in today's politics is the Bidens. Except, as they stated earlier this week at what was supposed to be a bombshell news conference, they've been unable to come up with any actual receipts. The New York Times writes the Republicans conceded that they have yet to find evidence of a specific corrupt action Mr. Biden took in office in connection with any of the business deals his son entered into. Instead, their presentation underscored how little headway top Republican lawmakers have made in finding clear evidence of questionable transactions they can tie to Mr. Biden, their chief political rival. Joining me now is Congresswoman Madeleine Dean of Pennsylvania. And Congresswoman, today, Darrell Issa said this of Mark Pomerantz's inability to give him any dirt.
He has answered no questions. He has asserted on behalf of the DA's office and himself what I would characterize as taking the fifth, effectively taking the fifth every single time. I've never had a more obstructive and less cooperative witness in my over 20 years in Congress.
And he's a veteran of doing these hatchet job hearings. Never had a more uncooperative witness. Your thoughts?
Oh, my. Why doesn't he look back at the deposition of Donald Trump? How many hundreds of times did he say, I take the fifth, and many of his comrades? You know what I have here? I'm a member of Judiciary Committee. I have here the statement of Mr. Pomerantz, which is public record, that went before the questions that are now not public record yet. And he writes, he introduces himself by saying, I am here because I respect the rule of law. I am here present as required. What I do not respect is the use of the committee's subpoena power to compel me to participate in an act of political theater. That's exactly what it was. You know that, Joy. You have seen, sadly, this Judiciary Committee under the lead of Chairman Jordan. It's just been political circus and theater. And Mr. Jordan himself is struggling to try to find some nucleus to this theater. Mr. Pomerantz did very important work with the district attorney. He had every right to claim any kind of privilege in terms of protecting that which is under investigation. It would be improper, now that the man is indicted, for him to come forward and testify in other ways.
Well, now the right-wing nation turns its lonely eyes to Congressman James Comer, who they thought was going to really bring down the Bidens. Here he is, unable to answer repeated questions, asking for evidence, just evidence implicating President Biden in some sort of crime.
Have you found anything illegal while he was actually in office?
Well, we found a lot that's certainly unethical. We found a lot that should be illegal.
Are you standing by witness intimidation? The witnesses and the whistleblowers are being intimidated by the president's son's lawyers. You stand by that and you say you have evidence of that?
It depends on your definition of intimidation.
But you've got to be able to prove they broke laws. Can you do that?
Right. Well, as you know, my job is to investigate and present the facts. We're presenting facts that's never been presented before.
There's no evidence that Joe Biden did anything illegally.
Well, if you look at the laptop and the emails between the president's son and his associates, they went to great lengths to hide Joe's involvement, and we're still looking for more bank records that we believe will implicate Joe Biden's active participation in this at the end of the day.
You know, Congresswoman, this feels like the endless hunting of Hillary Clinton to me, and that got nowhere as well.
Yeah, it's a surge. Do you remember what these folks ran on when we all ran for re-election or for election this last Congress? They were going to focus on the American people. Inflation, the economy. Instead, they're in these witch hunts that are absurd. And what your viewers may or may not know is that Comer and Jordan are in their own intramural squabble. Who can get the headline? Obviously, Comer didn't get any headline. Jordan's not getting any headlines. They're going nowhere. And that's exactly what's going on. I want to contrast that with what Democrats are doing. Democrats are calling on the Republicans now in this slim majority. Do something about that, which my constituents are furious about. Do something about gun violence, as we see slaughter after slaughter after slaughter. And I called Mr. Jordan out on this in a markup this week, a markup that was allegedly around lifting police officers around Police Week. Resolution after resolution saying nice things about police. How about funding the police? How about not calling for the defunding of FBI? Matt Gaetz calling for the tearing down and dismantling of ATF, which police departments depend upon. This is a real sad circus and very damaging to the American people. And we haven't even talked about, for example, the debt ceiling crisis, a faux crisis that is so dangerous, so irresponsible, that I'm really surprised that anyone on the other side of the aisle would risk that. But when you're under the leadership of someone who is so weak, that maybe you would risk that.
Well, the other thing is that, there hasn't been let me show you a still. This is actually a still from the CNN Trump town hall that shows the kind of dual reactions of New Hampshire Republicans and Republican-leading independents, men cheering and women just staring straight ahead. And this actually, I believe, was at the point in the debate where Donald Trump was saying he owed Mike Pence no apologies for trying to get him killed, that Mike Pence should have overturned the election. It seems to me that it's hard to tell whether it is the base that leads the Trumpists or the Trumpists in the Republican caucus who lead the base. What do you make of it that we now do have a mainstream, what people think of as regular news outlet, laundering Trumpism and MAGAism alongside Fox News?
I'm very glad you are covering this. I have to tell you, Joy, I called a friend of mine at CNN before the interview, the so-called town hall. It was not a town hall. This was a fabrication that allowed the former failed president, twice impeached, now found civilly liable, criminally indicted, a man who has lied to us. You know, the old expression, lie to me once, shame on you, Mr. Trump. Lie to me tens of thousands of times, shame on us for taking it. Shame on you, CNN. I really respect so much of what CNN does and so many of their journalists, including Caitlin Collins. But I think that was a grave mistake. You know what happened? This former president lied dangerously and deceived good Americans. And many of those good Americans still believe those lies. Shame on them for giving him that free platform. Shame on them for stacking that audience. When I tuned in, Joy, I couldn't believe the reaction of the audience. I thought there would be some balance. Did they really advise the audience that they could not boo First Amendment?
Apparently so.
Did they really advise that? To allow this man to continue the cancerous, dangerous, anti-democratic lies from somebody who was in the gallery on January the 6th, I think that was a grave, grave mistake.
And I will note that they do have a member of their paid contributor staff or paid contributor team who could have been a great person on a panel afterwards named Michael Fanone, who was a Metropolitan Police officer at the time. I didn't see him make air after that was over for him to get a question to Donald Trump or a comment afterwards. They could have put him on if they wanted some balance. They didn't do that either. Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, thank you. Thank you so much.
And we don't live in silos.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.